Hi everyone, I just want to talk a little bit more about putting it all together. Okay, so as you are studying, there's a couple of things you need. So you're going to need your good lecture notes. When you work through your lecture notes, whether it's the ones you're given by your lecturer or ones you make, you need to be looking at it for clarity and completeness. That's really essential. As you work through, hopefully you'll be mapping your topics in a visual sense. These maps, and you could have 2 to 3 for a 1-hour lecture, these maps will form the basis of your revision because you can work through that map and practice articulating the steps, naming parts, and being able to do it fluently. So remember, lectures are linear, understanding has to be multidimensional and holistic, but an exam is also linear, so you need to practice being able to articulate fluently. If you find as you work through your map sometime after doing the lecture that you can't articulate something or you don't remember, that's a signal that you need to go back and dip into your lecture for that particular topic. The idea is that you're dipping in and dipping out of your lecture notes or the textbook. You're not starting reading at the first page of 300 pages of lecture notes and trying to read through and remember. That doesn't work because all you tend to do is fill up, overload your short-term memory. The topic maps are going to be how you get things into longer-term memories and how you clearly structure things. Now, the good thing is that this particular type of approach, which, by the way, you need to adapt for your own preferences and your own way of working, this type of approach tends to allow for better integration between different sorts of topics. So where you start to find you have to integrate the biology with the pathology with the clinical, having topic maps really does help that. That's because you've got a structure which is progressively getting more and more familiar and fleshed out mentally for you. So you're getting metacognition of your course content. And as you get that, it then becomes a lot more easier to see the relationships with other bits and also to integrate across topics and across domains. All right. Okay, now I do want to have a quick word with you about how you would manage your time around using this sort of process. Now, my prediction is that once you've practiced a bit and once you've worked out how this sort of approach would fit with your natural tendencies, and most of us are very visual, so it tends to be good for most of us, I'd expect it's going to take you roughly 1-to-1. So you'll be doing 1 hour of consolidation, which is your topic mapping, for every hour of lecture. So in that thing, you're both getting the mental structures, which is great, and you're getting the revision sheet, which is great. Okay, do not waste your time, whatever you do, with re-summarising, copying and pasting detailed diagrams into a new version of the same notes. One set of good notes is all you need. Whether you are able to master the material then depends on what you do with it, and making another set of notes isn't going to help any. Alrighty. Now, the other thing is that you do need to be planning what you're doing during the week. I'm sure a lot of you do use weekly planners that has Monday to Sunday and time of the day. Depending on whether you've got a consistent timetable or one that varies from week to week, you need to structure in the time to look at each topic. And if you know a topic is more challenging, then you need to allow more time for it. The really key thing with time management is that you have to have goals and they have to be specific and they have to be small, okay? So it's really important that you know exactly what it is, and I guess you can think of it as a target that you're trying to achieve in the time. Don't, whatever you do, set aside an evening and say, I'm going to study my lectures that evening. That is not a good thing to do. One of the reasons you need small goals, like I will do this topic, and very specific ones, definitely that topic, and I'll do it in this time frame between 8 and 10 p.m. this night. The reason you need to do it like that is you need to be able to tick things off. It is very problematic, especially if you tend to be a driven perfectionist personality, is to get in that awful mindset where you're never reaching your goals. So studying and revising ends up being a really negative experience. You need to set yourself up so that you can tick things off, give yourself a pat on the back that you've actually done it. Okay, now that sounds trivial and almost juvenile, but it's one of the biggest reasons I see students struggling is that they set themselves impossible goals and never manage to achieve them, not surprisingly, and then they're never getting any sense of satisfaction and achievement out of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. Now, for med students in particular, for a long program of study, you cannot afford to set yourself up for that sort of experience. It's going to be hard enough with everything that you do that's positive in your life, and your time management is going to be key to making your study a positive experience as well. So it's still going to be hard and it's still going to be challenging. You need to make sure it's positive. So you need small achievable goals that you can tick off and you can say, well done, I've done it. Okay. Now, just a couple more things and hopefully this will be the last module. Right. Now, I haven't mentioned, but one of the reasons topic mapping tends to work, or at least work for me, is that it's the use of, in a way, a visual metaphor. So, for example, when I say visual metaphor, I might say I had a particularly difficult disease that I was trying to remember, and I was doing a bit of a summary, and I was saying, well, it affects mainly males over 70. Okay? And I might draw it up like that. This sort of thing where, you use whether it's smileys or things that represent things. Now, the fact that you've gone to the trouble of thinking about representing, for example, this is, you may remember, this is the antibiotic that affects the cell membrane of a bacterium. Now, the thinking process, identifying the key bit that you want to represent, and the thinking process that goes through thinking, well, how do I visually represent that, is the active part. This sort of thing really calls on your creativity and your visual processes, and it's your visual processes that tend to be what's needed. So, for example, for paramedics, 30 degrees, this is a body position, straight, or perhaps it shouldn't be a smile, and if you see a visible pulse, that's a bad thing, a pronounced pulse, and the neck has to be straight, okay, and the head turned to the left. So it's really simple to do this thing if you break away from the actual word bit, okay? Now, all right, now I usually do these sessions as a one-on-one with students, so it's a two-way flowing conversation, so I have absolutely no idea whether you are going to find any of this any use. So please, if you have feedback, feel free to get in touch with me at the University of Tasmania. Okay? I'd really appreciate your feedback. See you later.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.